Greetings, Earthlings. I am a mere human. A speck upon a speck upon a speck. But likely you are human as well, and if you're not, well, let me know. Now, this is a message from the Earth itself. I'm not a prophet. I'm not a messenger of any type. I'm not pretending to be one. Like I said, I'm just a speck on a speck, orbiting a speck that's orbiting another speck. And we're in a cluster of these, just surrounded by nothing. Now that you understand how insignificant you are, we can get back to the point of this video, which is to inform you about a problem that we have. And that problem is that the world is on fire. And the bigger problem that I have with this is that humans are the ones to blame. It's our fault that the world is heating up. So when humans destroy themselves, and we are going to destroy ourselves, there's no one to blame but ourselves. Now bear with me for a moment, because every word that I say has been at least very specifically outlined. So even if it seems like I'm getting sidetracked, I'm not. It will make sense at the end. Now, let's talk about procrastination. Tim Urban once did a TED Talk about procrastination. He talked about how your brain is controlled by two beings. Part of your brain is dominated by a rational decision maker, which makes decisions that make sense, which is generally a good thing, especially if you want to succeed in life. Now, your definition of success is different from everybody else's, but the rational decision maker is you. So it will make decisions that will help you do whatever your version of success is. Now, there's another part of your brain that is less rational. Now, Tim Urban calls this the instant gratification monkey. It's the part of your brain that wants to go, hey, let's look at Facebook, Instagram, whatever your social media site may be. Or it says, hey, why don't we check out what India looks like? Let's just get really close in with India. Now, that's not my example, of course, that's Tim Urban's example. But part of your brain wants to make the good decision. Part of your brain says, hey, let's do something fun. And for the majority of people, they give in to that instant gratification monkey. They give in and say, okay, let's do something fun. Now, typically that happens, but of course, when there's a deadline inflicted, you tend to say, no, we can't. We can't get really close to India. We can't go scroll through social media because we have something coming up. We have a deadline. We have that essay due. We have that math homework that we really need to do before the test. And so that's why we don't procrastinate. But for the most part, we do procrastinate because there is no deadline. So let me give you a personal example. While it looks nice and clean here on set, my room is actually a ginormous mess. I'm ashamed of it, but I'll admit it to the entire internet just to make a point. I have been putting off cleaning up my room for a couple weeks now because there's no one that's gonna force me to get it done, and there's no deadline for when I need to do it. So my brain tells me to do other things, like make YouTube videos. I mean, I've also got other stuff going on, but for the most part, I don't have anything getting in my way. Now, Tim Urban argues that every human's brain works like this, and most humans are incapable of getting stuff done unless there's a deadline set in place. In my experience, this is vastly accurate. Now, like I said earlier, the only way that people seem to get over this roadblock is when they're under a time crunch. So when there is something due, when something needs to happen before a certain date, they can get over the fact that they want to go watch TikTok videos for 3 hours straight. And they get down to business. But if there's no deadline set in place, you're likely never going to accomplish what you need to. If there's nothing in it for the instant gratification monkey, there's no reason for you to do it. At least this is what your brain tells you. There's no reason for you to finish that task ever. Now, of course, there are reasons. Your logical brain will eventually, at some point, kick in and say, hey, you need to do this thing because otherwise, if you never get it done, something bad's gonna happen. But that bad thing that's gonna happen is effectively a deadline. Now let's talk about something different. I want to talk about climate change. And while this is a subject that a lot of people turn their heads away from, I do think it is incredibly important because we've got a problem, and the world is on fire. Since the late 1800s, the world has steadily grown warmer and warmer. This is because the Industrial Revolution has increased fossil fuel use and produces more greenhouse gases. And the more greenhouse gases are emitted into the atmosphere, the warmer the planet tends to get. Now, the problem is that the temperature is going up without any hint of slowing down. And that's where the problem begins. The leaderboard for the top 10 warmest years on record is dominated by years after 2000. In fact, the 10 warmest years on record are completely overtaken by the past 15. Record-breaking temperatures all throughout the last decade. And there's no one to blame but ourselves. You see, humans are single-handedly the most intelligent and yet stupidest species on the entire planet. We're able to fight bacteria with other bacteria and win consistently. We're able to send people into space, even to the moon, and most impressive, we are capable of flying a helicopter on Mars without telling it what to do. I mean, these feats of engineering are insane. It is crazy to think what humanity has done since the Industrial Revolution, but we're also the stupidest species on the planet. Why? Because we're going to tear ourselves to pieces. Humans have created thousands, if not millions, of different solutions to thousands, if not millions, of different problems throughout all of history. But because it's too hard, it's too much work, it takes too much money, we often don't think about climate change because we think, we'll do it later. Now, this is where we get into the thing about procrastination. Now, I'm not going to specifically say anything about it, but keep it in the back of your mind. And also keep in mind that climate change is the most pressing current issue for the entirety of the human race. Now, if we continue with the struggle against climate change at the rate we're going, we may or may not save the planet. Now, I'm not comfortable with the entirety of humanity resting on a maybe. Now, if we do nothing, millions of species, including ourselves, will perish, and it will be our own fault. Now, believe me, we do not want to go down in the history books as the species that destroyed themselves. That's a bad reputation to have. When the dinosaurs went extinct, it's because this giant rock came out of the sky and hit the Gulf of Mexico and basically killed almost everything. Now, we see that rock coming, and we know how to stop it. That rock is climate change, and we have plenty of solutions for the problems. But we need to enact them. Because the dinosaurs did not see their destruction coming, but we have seen it coming for years, if not decades. And because we can't focus as a species, we'll never get this thing done. And the biggest thing that's holding us back right now is that we have all of the time in the world. Literally, there is no deadline. Which allows me to bring up Tim Urban's earlier point. If we don't have a deadline, we don't typically get anything done. But that's the thing, because there is a deadline. If we don't do anything about this issue, we will inevitably destroy ourselves. If we allow the global temperature to rise more than 1.5 degrees Celsius above the average before the Industrial Revolution, we can't continue living on this planet for a very long time. By the way, for those of you who are not well versed in the metric system, this is about 2.2 degrees Fahrenheit. If we allow temperatures to rise much more than that, there's a good chance that the damage that we do from that cannot be undone. But here's the kicker. We are already more than 2/3 of the way there. All of this leads me to believe that we do have a deadline. It's not a specific day or a specific week in a year or a specific month, but a general estimate is that we need to let greenhouse gas emissions peak by 2025, at the latest. So we have less than 3 years to reach the maximum amount of greenhouse gases produced in a year. So we really need to get this thing done. It's now or never. We only have one planet, because there is no planet B. Now, I'm going to talk personally for a moment. I care about this issue a lot, probably more than you think I do. But I mean, let's face it, humanity needs to get their act together. We need to solve this problem before we destroy ourselves. On our bucket list, we need to add at the very top, save the world, and then put anything else you like. And we need to crack down on that first item on the list, like now, because we don't have a ton of time. We have less than 3 years. I will be in college, and it's scary to think this, but it's not that far away. You see, I'm a part of the world's youth. I have to live with the consequences of the actions of my elders. And if we don't do anything about the climate crisis, I have to live with the results. Or I die because of it. I mean, I've got a lot on my mind. There are tons of issues that I need to worry about because I am going to be humanity in just a few years. So there are lots of problems out there that need to be solved, but at the top of the list, save the planet before the planet destroys itself. So if we continue to let the world warm up, we will likely lack certain resources for just basic necessities by the time my children are in college, possibly before then. Because if we don't save the world, there's no one that's going to be around afterward to save us from it. So we need to get our priorities straight. Let's save the world. Then we can do everything else. I'll do my part, you do yours. Because the planet is not going to save itself. We've only got one shot at this. Over and out.